やらなくてもいいことならやらない。やらなければいけないことなら手短に。
Is this laziness or is this wisdom? In a world that tells you to hustle, to grind, to give 110% to everything you do, Houtarou Oreki asks a question that most people are afraid to ask. Why? Why should I care about things that don't matter? Why should I waste energy on activities that bring no meaning to my life? Why should I burn myself out trying to be something I'm not? For Oreki, life is about energy conservation. Not because he's lazy, though everyone calls him that. Not because he lacks ambition, though he certainly doesn't chase it, but because he understands something that most people spend their entire lives ignoring. Most things aren't worth your energy. But here's the paradox. In his quest to do as little as possible, Oreki finds himself drawn into mysteries, problems, and relationships that demand everything he's trying to conserve. And through this journey, he discovers something unexpected. Some things are worth spending energy on. You just have to figure out which ones. This is the philosophy of Houtarou Oreki from Hyouka, a story about what it means to live intentionally in a world that demands you care about everything, and how finding what truly matters requires the courage to stop caring about what doesn't. To understand Oreki, you have to understand what his life looks like at the beginning of the story. Houtarou Oreki is a first-year high school student who has perfected the art of doing nothing. He doesn't join clubs, he doesn't participate in school events, he doesn't raise his hand in class unless called upon. He spends his days reading, napping, and generally existing in a state of minimum effort. His motto defines his entire worldview. If I don't have to do it, I won't. If I have to do it, I'll make it quick. To most people, this looks like laziness, but for Oreki, it's a philosophical stance. He calls it energy conservation, the principle that you should never expend more energy than absolutely necessary. Why try hard when trying just a little will suffice? Why care deeply when caring casually takes less effort? Why pursue excellence when mediocrity is easier? And here's the thing, Oreki is brilliant. He has exceptional deductive reasoning skills. He can solve complex mysteries with minimal information. He's naturally intelligent and perceptive. If he actually tried, he could excel at almost anything. But he doesn't try. Because trying means caring, and caring means vulnerability. Oreki describes his life as gray, ordinary, unremarkable, dull. And he's fine with that. In fact, he prefers it. Because the alternative, what his friend Satoshi calls a rose-colored life, requires energy. It requires passion. It requires investment in things that might not work out. It requires risk. A rose-colored life is full of excitement, adventure, passion, and meaning. But it's also full of disappointment, failure, heartbreak, and exhaustion. A gray life is safe, predictable, low stakes. You can't be disappointed if you never expect anything. You can't fail if you never try. You can't get hurt if you never care. Oreki chooses gray because it's easier, but there's a problem. Oreki isn't happy being gray. He just doesn't know how not to be. And here's the deeper reason for Oreki's philosophy. His older sister, Tomo. Tomo Oreki is everything Houtarou isn't. She's energetic, ambitious, social, and successful. She travels the world. She has adventures. She lives a rose-colored life. And Houtarou, he grew up in her shadow. When you have a sibling who excels at everything, you have two choices: compete with them or give up entirely. Oreki chose the latter. He convinced himself that he's not like his sister, that he doesn't need excitement or achievement, that he's perfectly content living a quiet, gray, unremarkable life. But the truth is more complicated. Oreki gave up, not because he didn't want those things, but because he was afraid he couldn't achieve them. It's easier to say, I don't care, than to say, I tried and failed. It's easier to conserve energy than to spend it and come up short. Oreki's energy conservation isn't wisdom, it's self-protection. Everything changes when Oreki joins the Classic Literature Club. He doesn't want to join. He's perfectly happy staying home and doing nothing. But his sister, currently traveling abroad, sends him a letter with a simple request: join the Classic Lit Club to save it from being disbanded. Oreki, despite his philosophy, can't refuse his sister, so he joins, reluctantly, with every intention of doing the bare minimum to keep the club alive. And then he meets Eru Chitanda. Chitanda is Oreki's opposite in every way. Where he's apathetic, she's curious. Where he's withdrawn, she's engaged. Where he conserves energy, she spends it freely and passionately on everything that interests her. And what interests her is everything. Her catchphrase, I'm curious, is more than just a quirk. It's a philosophy. It's a way of engaging with the world that Oreki has spent his entire life avoiding. When Chitanda encounters a mystery, she needs to solve it. Not because it's important, not because it will benefit her, but simply because not knowing is unbearable. And she drags Oreki into every mystery she encounters because she's discovered something about him that he's tried very hard to hide. Oreki is brilliant at solving mysteries, and despite himself, he's good at it. The very first mystery they solve is simple. Why was Chitanda locked in the club room? Oreki doesn't want to solve it. He wants to go home and nap. But Chitanda's curiosity is so intense, so genuine that he can't help himself. He uses his deductive reasoning to figure out what happened. And when he explains it to Chitanda, something unexpected happens. She's amazed. For the first time in his life, someone sees Oreki's intelligence not as something to be expected or taken for granted, but as something special, something worth praising, something that makes him stand out. And Oreki, despite himself, likes it. Not enough to change his philosophy, not enough to start trying at everything, but enough to keep showing up to the classic lit club, enough to keep solving mysteries when Chitanda asks, because for the first time, doing something feels like it might be worth the energy. But here's where things get complicated. As Oreki spends more time with Chitanda in the classic lit club, he starts to care. Not a lot, not dramatically, but incrementally, quietly, he begins to invest energy into things that his philosophy says he shouldn't. He helps solve mysteries that have nothing to do with him. He puts thought into problems that don't affect his life. He starts to enjoy the process of deduction, the satisfaction of finding answers, the feeling of being useful, and this terrifies him. Because caring means vulnerability. Caring means you can be disappointed. Caring means you can fail. And Oreki's entire philosophy is built on avoiding exactly that. Let's talk about what energy conservation actually means philosophically. On the surface, it sounds like simple laziness. But what Oreki is actually practicing is a form of intentional minimalism. In a world that demands you care about everything, school, sports, social life, college prep, extracurriculars, relationships, Oreki is asking, what if I only cared about the things that actually matter to me? This is radical in its own way. We live in a culture of hustle, of maximization, of FOMO. We're told that if we're not giving 110% to everything, we're failing. That if we're not passionate about our work, our hobbies, our relationships, our side projects, all at once, we're wasting our lives. Oreki rejects this entirely. He's saying, most things don't deserve your full effort. Most things aren't worth burning yourself out over. Save your energy for what truly matters. The problem is, Oreki hasn't figured out what truly matters yet. There's actually deep wisdom in Oreki's approach, even if he doesn't fully understand it himself. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Similarly, it's not about doing everything, it's about choosing what to do intentionally. Oreki understands something that burnout culture refuses to acknowledge. You have finite energy. You cannot care deeply about everything. If you try, you'll care deeply about nothing. This is why so many people experience burnout. They spread themselves so thin, trying to excel at work, maintain relationships, pursue hobbies, stay healthy, keep up with social obligations, and meet societal expectations that they end up exhausted and empty. Oreki avoids this by caring about almost nothing, which is effective at preventing burnout, but it also prevents growth, connection, and meaning. Here's the irony of Oreki's philosophy. In his quest to conserve energy, he often wastes more. There's an episode where Oreki makes a bet that he can create a plausible theory for any situation. He wins the bet. But he spends the entire day thinking about the problem, far more energy than if he just admitted he didn't know. This happens repeatedly. Oreki goes to elaborate lengths to avoid tasks, when doing the task would have been simpler. He creates complex schemes to minimize effort, when straightforward action would have been more efficient. The paradox is that maintaining his philosophy of non-engagement requires constant vigilance. Not caring is work. Protecting yourself from vulnerability is exhausting. Building walls takes more energy than opening doors. The turning point in Oreki's story comes during the mystery movie arc. The classic lit club is asked to help complete an unfinished mystery film. The original writer fell ill before finishing the script, and the film club needs someone to figure out the intended ending. Oreki, despite his philosophy, gets drawn into the challenge, and for the first time, he actually tries. He spends days thinking about the mystery. He considers multiple angles. He puts genuine effort into creating a solution that's not just adequate, but excellent. And he succeeds. His ending is brilliant. Everyone praises him. The film is completed successfully. Oreki feels proud, special, like maybe he could be more than gray. But then he discovers the truth. He was manipulated. Fuyumi Irisu, the person who asked for his help, didn't actually want to find the true ending. She wanted to replace the original writer entirely, and she used Oreki to do it. All her praise, all her encouragement, all her talk about how special he was. It was manipulation to get what she wanted. Oreki is devastated. This confirms everything he's always believed. Trying is dangerous. Caring leads to pain. Being vulnerable means being used. He retreats back into his shell, more committed than ever to his energy conservation philosophy. But Chitanda doesn't let him stay there. She tells Oreki that he's wrong to give up, that being used once doesn't mean trying isn't worth it, that closing himself off is the real waste, not of energy, but of potential. You're capable of so much more than you allow yourself to be, she tells him. And here's what makes this moment powerful. Chitanda isn't telling Oreki to change his entire philosophy. She's not saying he should care about everything, or try hard at everything, or live a fully rose-colored life. She's saying, some things are worth your energy, including this, including us, including yourself. Throughout the series, Oreki is confronted with a question he can't escape, not from Chitanda directly, but from her very existence. Does he want his life to mean something? Oreki's initial answer is defensive. I'm fine being gray, I don't need to be special. But watching Chitanda's genuine curiosity, her passion for understanding the world, her investment in every mystery no matter how small, it makes Oreki realize something uncomfortable. He doesn't want to be special like his sister. He doesn't want to compete or meet expectations or chase some idealized success. But does he want to matter? Does he want to use his abilities for something meaningful? Does he want to look back on his life and feel like it was worth living? Yes, he does, and that realization is terrifying. Because wanting your life to matter means you have to try. And trying means you might fail, and failing means all that energy was wasted. But through Chitanda, Oreki learns another perspective. Trying isn't wasted even if you fail. Not trying is wasted even if you succeed at nothing. By the end of Hyouka, Oreki's philosophy hasn't disappeared, but it's evolved. He still believes in energy conservation. He still doesn't care about most things. He still prefers a quiet, low-key life over constant excitement and drama. But he's learned to make exceptions. The classic lit club? Worth his energy. Solving mysteries with Chitanda? Worth his energy. Using his intelligence for things he finds meaningful? Worth his energy. This is the refined philosophy. Energy conservation doesn't mean doing nothing. It means choosing what you do very carefully. There's a concept in investing called concentrated portfolio. Instead of spreading your investments thin across hundreds of stocks, you invest heavily in a few companies you truly believe in. Oreki applies this to life. Most people spread their energy thin across dozens of commitments, obligations, and pursuits they don't really care about. They say yes to everything because they're afraid of missing out or disappointing others. Oreki says no to almost everything, but when he says yes, he means it. This is actually profound wisdom in disguise. The essentialist author Greg McKeown writes, "If you don't prioritize your life, someone else will." Oreki prioritizes ruthlessly. He eliminates the non-essentials so he can invest in what truly matters. Most people never figure this out. They spend their entire lives busy but unfulfilled, productive but purposeless, exhausted but empty. Oreki refuses to live like that. Oreki never fully embraces a rose-colored life. And that's okay, because the message of Hyouka isn't that you should be passionate about everything, or try hard at everything, or care deeply about everything. The message is that you should find your balance. For Oreki, that balance is mostly gray with selective splashes of rose. His life is quiet, simple, and low-key, except for the people and pursuits he consciously chooses to invest in. For others, the balance might be different. Some people thrive on constant stimulation and passion. Some people need more gray than rose. Some people need more rose than gray. There's no universal right answer. There's only your answer. And finding it requires the courage to say no to what doesn't matter so you can say yes to what does. Here's the deepest truth of Oreki's story. Not caring is easy. Caring takes courage. Oreki spent most of his life protecting himself through apathy. If you don't care, you can't be disappointed. If you don't try, you can't fail. If you don't invest, you can't lose. But you also can't win. Caring means vulnerability. Trying means risk. Investing means potential loss. But it also means potential joy, connection, and meaning. Oreki learns that the real waste of energy isn't trying and failing. It's never trying at all. It's reaching the end of your life and realizing you conserved all your energy for nothing. In today's world, Oreki's philosophy is more relevant than ever. We're living through a burnout epidemic. People are exhausted from hustle culture, toxic positivity, and the pressure to optimize every moment of their lives. Oreki offers an alternative, permission to not care about everything. You don't have to be passionate about your job. You don't have to have 5 side hustles. You don't have to be constantly improving, grinding, optimizing. You can rest. You can be selective. You can conserve your energy for what truly matters. But, and this is crucial, you do have to figure out what truly matters. Oreki's mistake wasn't energy conservation. It was conserving energy for nothing. Not investing in anything meaningful because he was afraid of investing in something meaningless. The wisdom is knowing the difference. So how do you apply Oreki's philosophy to your own life? Step 1. Identify what drains you. What activities, obligations, and relationships consume your energy without providing meaning or joy? Step 2. Eliminate ruthlessly. Say no more often. Remove commitments that don't serve you. Stop doing things because you should. Step 3. Identify what energizes you. What makes you feel alive? What problems do you solve naturally? What relationships nourish you? Step 4. Invest intentionally. Once you've freed up energy by eliminating the unnecessary, invest that energy deliberately into what matters. This is energy conservation, done right. If I don't have to do it, I won't. If I have to do it, I'll make it quick. These words are Oreki's philosophy at the beginning of his story, and in many ways, they remain his philosophy at the end. But they mean something different now. At the beginning, they meant, I will do the absolute minimum required to exist, and I will care about nothing. At the end, they mean, I will be selective about where I invest my finite energy, and I will conserve it for what truly matters. The words are the same, but the wisdom behind them has deepened. Oreki's journey isn't about transformation, it's about refinement. He doesn't become a different person. He doesn't abandon his core philosophy. He doesn't suddenly become energetic, passionate, and constantly engaged. He just learns to care, selectively, intentionally, and wisely. And in a world that tells you to care about everything, learning to care about the right things is its own form of rebellion. Oreki teaches us that it's okay to not be passionate about everything. It's okay to rest. It's okay to say no. It's okay to live a quiet, simple life. But you still have to find something worth saying yes to. Because energy conservation isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things. And finding those right things, that's worth every ounce of energy you've saved. That's the philosophy of Houtarou Oreki, a boy who believed in doing nothing and learned that some things are worth everything. If you've ever felt burnout, overwhelmed, or pressured to care about things that don't matter to you, Oreki's story is for you, not because it tells you to do less, but because it tells you to choose better. If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. What's your version of energy conservation? What do you choose to care about? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more anime philosophy. Until next time, conserve your energy wisely, but don't forget to spend it on what matters.